mom has been sharing about the Emmeline, I say it wrong, but that little Down syndrome. And so they thought her body was rejecting the transplant, and now it seems like it's a different, but it's a long word that I don't have. But so if we could just, it seems like it's a good respect that I'm understanding it, because it's not a rejection, but there's still prayer process. Yeah.
Yes.
She's still just saying and doing humorous things. It's really cute.
Anybody else? Second row, anything? Missionary update. I feel like pray for Reverend Bob. We got any recent ones?
No, but at the nursing home, I did mention the birds, and so we could keep praying for them. They're obviously in the States. He went, so he would be in Australia right now, and she's in the States with his mom, and he will be coming back. Pretty much, they plan to stay for the last days of his mom's life. So it could be a long time or a short time. I don't know.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you again for who you are. We thank you that you are certainly aware of the needs, you're aware of the circumstances, you're aware of every bump and curve in our life, and we thank you for that. And as we face those times of our life where there do seem to be bumps or things seem to be turning in directions that we don't understand, and we don't grasp, I pray that you just remind us to trust, as our theme is here in this series, and to follow after you, come what may. We pray that you would chat and the kids as they travel this weekend. I pray that you give them safety as they travel, and then as well a good visit while they're here. Certainly do pray for Emmeline as well, and some of the immediate medical needs that is involved there. We also thank you for just the progress and certainly the joy that it seems they have, and we thank you for that. So we just ask that in any decisions or tasks that lie ahead, just that you give that wisdom that is necessary, and certainly the grace to the family as they move forward. But we certainly do thank you for even ultimately the miracle involved there. So we need to pray for the Bergs, and currently with Don in quite a distance away, they're in Australia, and all the rest of the families here. I just pray that you give this direction, and as he's trying to wrap some things up there in Australia, and get all positions filled, and certainly the ministry to continue on despite their quick absence. I just pray that you just give him the energy, the strength, even the mindset to be able to accomplish this, while certainly his heart and mind are back home. And I just pray as well that you be with the family as they're gathering, and certainly uncertain of the amount of days left for the mom, but I just pray that you would certainly give them all grace, and you give them just precious moments if you see fit, and then as well just that you would certainly give the strength that is necessary as they move forward. And I just pray that you give just the Bergs it's a reminder of your very presence, a reminder of your amazing love, and continue to just direct and use them, even here in the States while they spend time with family. And I just pray that you give them the strength that is so necessary. Certainly for other requests or the other needs, so you pray for Reverend Bob, just having been here on Sunday, certainly the needs, and certainly the endless need there in Springfield, but his heart and desire to share your word with so many there in Springfield. May you just continue to give open doors, and just continue to give him the boldness and the help to continuing on, and we thank you for that. And for the other requests not mentioned, or the other requests that we have mentioned previously, I just ask that you would direct and guide and provide, that you will alone be glorified. And we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. For some quick announcements, tomorrow night, the National Night Out, picnic in the park, whatever word you want to call it, whatever title you want to give it. We will be there at the park, like maybe 5 to 8. So, for whatever extent you are available to be there, that would be a huge blessing. We did get pick up some things last night. We're gonna have some freeze pops and the handout, and then the mints that we seem to have an abundance of. Some Bibles, and it looks like there's the daily bread.
breads. We have so many extra.
Yes.
I'd like to put those on the table.
So I have those, and then we got some what are those little like turbo footballs, little wing out the back, and we'll kind of set up not necessarily like a bozo game, but I have a basket a ways from our table, behind our table, and for those I can make a basket, just basically get the kids involved. We got some candy bars as well as prizes, and so we'll see how that all plays out, and but we could use some help in that regard. And Plenty Center will be there as well, so
We need to
kind of
map
coordinating
too.
that table as well would be a benefit. And then fireworks tomorrow night for anybody else interested. They're down by the school at around 9-ish, 9:30-ish, whatever time frame that will be. And what was that?
Dusk.
At dusk. There you go, dusk. Dusk. At dusk. And we will be taking our normal position at barricades by the fitness center. And so if you want to join us over there, we have a very close proximity, so you get to look straight up to watch them. But I'm usually on the duty of the barricade for the night, so that will be blessed. These are the two things that have been my, I guess, my Toulon projects. Didn't ever intend on them being the same night, and so that was really out of my control. But I said, hey, we need to have fireworks, and we need to do this National Night Out, and everything's fallen into place. And this year it's the same night, so I may be running back and forth and trying to coordinate both events and the setting up of one event while the other event's going on. But that'll be fun too. And then Saturday we have the parade, and it starts at 2:00. So about 20 till we'll be here and then head that direction, and we'll walk the parade path. We have the bags, and I think we're going to try to put them in the the bags from last year or the year before. And so that you just carry a satchel full of bags, and then they may be easier to carry. But
That's my
certainly,
plan. I'll know more tomorrow.
we'll see if they all crumble
Yes.
down, and then if we got to fish them out, that's going to be easier.
We'll work on it tomorrow.
Yes, so we'll see how that all works out. But it's great because they're plastic, so they're really slippery. So if you and it's not like the Walmart bags that have little tabs that stick the one to the next to the next to the next. So if you start to lose one, they're just going to go.
The handles aren't as big, whereas
Yes.
the grocery sacks are bigger, so if we can
Correct.
line them up nicely in a grocery sack, in my mind, they'll be a lot easier to hand out.
Yes,
We'll see.
so we'll work out those details. But regardless, we can use some help on that as well. So anything else? Sunday again. Spaghetti is the meal, afternoon service as well. The team session will not be this coming Sunday, but the following, so we'll move in that one more week. And but that just gives you one more week to memorize those verses and work on the devotional if you're going to be a part of that part of it. And so that'll be the 11th or whatever that next Sunday will be. Anything else I'm neglecting?
For tomorrow night, we can need some of our tables or
Yes.
Yes, we're going to be hauling over our tables, and probably all of our tables, and probably a few. The fire department has a few of those white tables.
So yes, if you wanna help with that at all tomorrow afternoon,
that's what I'm wondering.
yes.
You know,
Cause we'll carefully take the tablecloths off and pull them out.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll need all the, at least probably, well, I guess we could even bring a 6 foot, because some people may prefer a 6 foot table. And so it seems like last year we took all of our tables, and then it seems like we still have to go get another 1 or 2 at the fire station. Because we need tables for serving the food too, up there, so. Lots of things, and then have some cleanup as well, so whatever time people can be a part of that, that would be a great help. I think I I'm still missing something. Oh, a reminder that Muriel is at the nursing home. If you want to go see her, A6. I'm certain she would enjoy the visit, even if she doesn't know you and you don't know her. I'm certain she will enjoy the visit. And to use her words, it would be amazing, amazing. And so I encourage you to just head over there if you have the time to do so.
I wonder if she'll be here when nursing home is here.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how. I wish she was just on her own not that long ago. I'm not sure. She may be able to come. That'd be pretty
That'd be
interesting.
great for her.
Yes. Very interesting. But we are trusting God, and we will go quickly here. Choosing to trust God. That's what I was going to say before we get into choosing to trust God. I mentioned Sunday we may go over and like sing or visit or whatever. If there's people interested in that, we surely can still do that. We also have I've got a lot of things dumped in my lap to get accomplished yet tonight, and so we'll be running. So let us know if you want to go. We will definitely go. If that doesn't work for anybody, we will go at a different time, and we'll coordinate those details out. But if you're interested in going, that would be great. As a group, we go harass her. That as well, to quote her, would be amazing. But some pitfalls. We need the pitfall number one is being good times. When the lines are falling onto me in pleasant places, as David said, and we need to be cautious of. Again, really, for most of these, if not all of them, it's not that we make a choice that says I'm not going to trust God, but it's we neglect to trust God by our omission, as opposed to a sin of commission of outright rebellion. I don't care. I'm not interested. More of an omission. We just we fail to trust God at times when things have fallen onto me in most places. And then the pitfall number two from our books, instruments. Certainly, again, our God uses us as instruments, and really on both sides of the coin. We can begin to become too trusting in our own abilities, our own channel, as they say, or as more specifically from the book's vantage point, we become dependent upon others to the point that we're trusting in instruments used by God as opposed to God. And so, again, we're not making a choice. I don't want to trust God, but by our actions, we are neglecting to trust Him. Pitfall number three, the small things, the messy in our heart, our understanding, our options, our gratitude. Those little things sometimes will certainly, kind of like the first one, really can at times come into play where, again, not choosing to not trust God, that might be a double negative there, but instead just neglecting to, omitting to truly trusting God. We looked at one that I added, our emotions, and then this week we want to add our solutions, the things that we have concluded is going to work best. If you ever resolved a problem in life, and it could be really in anything, just a situation arose, you came up with a solution, you thought you came up with a solution, you applied that solution and then realized that that solution caused another problem, which then required another solution, and then it just rolled from there. If you've owned a vehicle, you know exactly perhaps what I'm talking about. If you own a house, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Because a lot of times in those material things, a solution of one thing just seems at times to lead to another problem, to another problem, to another problem. And it's amazing how when you think you've got it, and you realize still so much more to do. I was thinking of our express van that we bought after our Astro van was obliterated from behind. And we bought that, I think it was in November, and by that next May, so 6 months later, really was pretty much the first time, I think we bought it and it needed tires. We had to get the tires replaced on, but that's kind of a normal, just a maintenance thing, and we got it, and my birthday, in fact, May 5th, went up to the parking lot to leave after church. It was on a Sunday, and there was a big puddle of steering fluid below, and I wound up spending the rest of the day fighting with all the unnecessary parts down below that were unnecessary only because they were in the way. That's how that worked out. And got that replaced, and I went over getting up, and it was a long day. I think it was about 10 o'clock before I got to throw some steaks on the grill for my birthday. And but I remember getting cleaned up, and Jen already had dinner ready, and sitting down, and I remember thinking, well, that wasn't bad. Hopefully that solves all of our problems. And that van was one of those vans that it never allowed us to stay very long. That solved all of our problems. And it was amazing how many times that I would finish a job, finish a task, finish a issue, engine light would come on, figure out what it was, get it fixed. Engine light goes off, and the very next week it's back on, something else. And that was the money pit of the van, if we could say it that way. When we took it in from one of the last repair that we were concerned about, and they said it was going to be like $2,000. We said, no thanks. Sold it to the mechanic for the $300 scrap price, and we literally ran like we had just stolen something. We are not, there's no sad goodbyes here. Here's the key. We're getting out of here before you change your mind. And if you've gone back behind the water tower here in town, it's still sitting back there. So hasn't worked well for him either, but at least at any time he can scrap it and get his money back, and so that works out as well. But certainly we've all had those illustrations in life where it just seems like one solution winds up not being a solution at all, but just the realization of problem number 2. And it continues on. In Jeremiah chapter 2, prophetically, at that time frame, certainly we look back in the history and already see the accomplishment of that prophetic aspect. But there's some solutions that were put into place that, from our vantage point, it's easy for us to shake our heads. It's easy for me to shake my head and say, really, guys, how can you do this? But when you kind of take it step by step in their steps, we can say it that way, in their shoes, you know, it's not so hard to see what they did. And while it's hard to admit it, I think it's easy to see that we still do the same thing. And although it may not be the exact same circumstance, I trust it's not the exact same circumstance. How sad it is when we can shake our heads at them and then overlook it in our own lives. The same problem. It leading up to, I guess, the first point, I'll just put it up there. Verse 12. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 12 says, be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid, be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. There's some problems with our solutions. And again, I don't believe that we should be saying that God never intends on us to use our brains to figure out things. I don't think that he means that we should just sit and wait until everything falls into place into our laps. I think God gave us minds, he gave us brains, he gave us intelligence. He even gave us experience. I'm not using it in a frilly way, but simply life to enable us to continue moving forward. There's things that I am able to help others in because I've already gone through it myself. And I'm not just talking troubles, but even just in the material aspect. And I would hope that we all be that same way. And so not to degrade the fact of us using our heads and moving forward. If you've ever worked a job, you know that you have to be able to figure things out and move forward in the learning experience as you move forward. But when we put our trust in our solutions, that becomes a pitfall to our trust in our God. When we begin to lean on, as Proverbs 3 says, our own understanding, our own solutions, our own means, our own way, instead of trusting our God, that is not only just a pitfall, that obviously is a sin. And here in verse 12, I want us to take a look from the kind of from the outside first, a view from the outside. Growing up in the Chicago area, certainly there were lots of accidents that I observed right in front of me many times, and a lot of them weren't very often very serious. Surprisingly enough, I think it's because traffic in the Chicago area never goes very fast. But in that area, it was always, you knew that you had to do what you had to do to get out of the way. You had to move on. You had to either, sometimes you couldn't go anywhere, you just stopped. But otherwise, you took means to get out of the way and kind of clear the intersection, and you knew that the police and the fire and the ambulance would be there in moments. We lived not far from a pretty busy intersection there in Downers Grove, and pretty frequently you hear that, and by the time because the fire station was literally on that corner, by the time we would run down there to kind of get a bird's eye view of what's going on, fire department was already there. And so growing up, I never had the opportunity, so to speak, of those situations where you see something and you have to wait. When I went to college at Maranatha, especially when we started dating, and especially in summers when I would stay in the area and she went home, and there'd be times that I'd have a day off, so I'd go visit her at her parents' house and make that trip across the state of Wisconsin. It was about an hour and a half or so. And to see, and I can't tell you how many accidents that I observed, and it almost became a sad joke. It was somewhat of an irony that they'd get there and it would become, so how many did you see this time? It was like every time I went to her parents' house, I was a witness to an accident. And those accidents were ones that took place in the middle of nowhere. And I remember one of the big ones that I think ultimately changed my thinking in regards to fire and EMS and ambulance and all that. It was dark. I think I had worked, and then I was going to go meet them for dinner, and it was winter. And so it was already dark, 4:30, it was already getting about dark. And I was on my way over to their house for dinner. And I saw headlights coming for, it's one of those roads you just drive for miles and you never pass anybody, in the middle of nowhere. And I saw headlights coming towards me, and then I saw headlights where they seemed to be going in the air, and then they disappeared, and they were back, and they disappeared. And from that vantage point, when you're driving that, towards, it's like, what is that? Like, or is it really hilly up there, and why are they turning on and off? What is going on? Well, as I got closer, this car was rolling end over end down the highway, and then landed upside down in the ditch on the side, and there's nobody around but me. And I remember quickly bringing my car to a screeching halt, and jumped out and ran along to the car, and the guy had been thrown out of the car. He was in bad shape, and house not far away had heard the boom, 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 boom. And so they came running down, and what are you doing? And they were actually freaking out, and I mean, we need to get some blankets, you got a pillow, you got something, we need to, it was clear that he had broken his femur. His leg was kind of doing one of these things, and cuts all over his head, and I remember saying, this is before cell phone, at least not in my budget anyway. Cell phones were not a thing yet. It's back in the early 90s. And I said, well, I'm back here home, call 911 and bring back a blanket, bring back some of these things. I'm just guessing. I took first aid in college, and that's my experience. And I remember sitting there with this guy, and he goes from trying to talk to me to he's no longer talking. And I remember first aid, you just sort of rub him on the chest and get blood all over my hands, but trying to keep him alert. And that initially helps, and then as time goes on, he's not even responding to that. And I remember looking back to this homeowner who was running back and forth down the street, saying, "You got to call him back. We're losing this guy, and I don't know what to do. I can't do anything." And he was I knew CPR, but this isn't a CPR thing. He's bleeding out, and I don't know what's going on in his leg, but that's not good either. And I don't know the details. I know when the police and the ambulance and fire department showed up, I don't believe that he actually was still alive. And it was one of those things as a college student. I remember got to her house, and I'm certain I was probably white as a ghost still. And I told her, we were just dating, and I said, I think we're already engaged. When we get married, after we get married, I'm going to take a class, and I'm going to be an EMT, because I can't do that again. I can't just sit at somebody's side not having a clue of what I need to do. And from that point, then we got married, and right after, in fact, while she was pregnant with AJ, I was taking the class, and so many times first on the scene, right in front of us. And this is what happens. And it's almost like your world, from the vantage point of an outsider, the world seems to stop, time seems to stop. And it's almost like, those movies where they put it in slow-mo, you're going, yeah. Several years ago, we were coming back from Kiwani, and a car right in front of us, heading down, was that 34, whatever that is, coming out of Kiwani. And they were turning, actually, we found out later, they're coming to Tulan. And so we literally would have been following them all the way. That first turn on the 91, 93, whatever that is at that intersection, turned right in front of a truck. And I remember we were sitting at that, waiting for this truck to go by, waiting for the car in front of us to go around, and we assumed also waiting for that truck to go by. I remember seeing them move and start to pull out slowly, not even like gunning it to get across the road, but slowly turning out. And I remember I literally yelled in the van, "No!" Boom! And just from the outside experience and the outside vantage point, you have that, "No! Don't! Oh, it's too late." And unfortunately, that was a fatality right in front of us. I wasn't an AMT. I had already expired my license, but at least I knew what to do at that point. And there's a if you've ever had the opportunity of being first on the scene of an accident that is serious like that, it kind of puts the vapor aspect of your life in clear vision. And it is amazing as the world slows down to a halt, and literally it seems like time just stands still as you see this car slowly turning. And this car, although he was going really fast coming towards it, but the truck coming, again, it seems really slowly, and you just see it all playing out before it happens, that this is, this is not going to, it didn't work. Well, notice what this verse says in verse 12. It's addressing the heavens. It's personifying the heavens, which is an inanimate object. It cannot express emotions. It cannot speak. The heavens, the skies. That's what it says. It says, "Be astonished, O ye heavens." And that word has that idea of where do I have it there? Literally, actually, of the "no" is the perfect illustration of it. Has an idea of the heavens are literally crying out, "No," as they are watching from the third person, from an outside vantage point, from an overview. They are seeing the decision of the children of Israel, and the heavens are astonished. And it also says, "Be horribly afraid." Literally has that idea of to storm or to shiver as with fear. I recall this very frequently growing up, and maybe I'm the only one that ever faced this, but did you, maybe in class, maybe in your own homes, when obviously you would have a response when you yourself were in trouble, and your body would respond in hopefully appropriate ways. But did you ever have, when you were, again, a first-hand witness of somebody else getting in trouble, and I find myself often like shivering. This kind of gives you a shiver as you are observing, and maybe it's just in the workplace, maybe just in the community, but maybe it's a neighbor kid getting yelled at by his parents, and it just kind of, at least for me, it just kind of gives you a shiver. Like, I'm glad that's not me, but it's that's literally what this "be horribly afraid." It literally has this idea of your hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you have this shiver of ah. And this would be very desolate. Now, again, we're talking about the heavens here. And while that could indicate being like dry, being dried up, having the clouds lose all their moisture, but it literally has this idea of literally, the word there means to lose your brightness. And so it's the sunny day turns to dark, so to speak. So this inanimate object is being told to be astonished, to be horribly afraid, to be very desolate. And I think that we have to understand from the outside the seriousness of what is being done oftentimes on the inside of our hearts, the inside of our lives. The vantage point of the heavens and their response in observing what is taking place. Have you ever watched somebody do something really dumb? Maybe they walked into a glass door, didn't realize it was closed, or tripped over the sidewalk and there's nothing to trip over. And the first thing that they do then, especially when it's me, is you need to look around. Who's watching? Who's laughing? Who's kind of going? And you want to make sure that you went unspotted, that nobody noticed. Well, if we grasp anything from this verse 12, I think we need to realize that our actions, our solutions are noticed, and not just and observed from that doesn't really matter what somebody else is doing. This literally the words "be ye astonished, be horribly afraid, be ye desolate" reminds us that what is being observed is something of great atrocity. This is something that is of serious nature. This is just like being behind that car when it pulled in front of a truck, and you literally scream out, "No! Don't do that!" That's what's being described in the view from the outside. Now, from the inside, we have not only the view from the outside, but the multiplication from the inside. This is what is interesting in regards to our trusting our God, is that whenever I choose to not trust my God, or when I omit trusting God, when by my actions it's in reality, not that I've made a mindset, as I've already said, I don't want to trust God in this, but because I put my trust in something else, I'm choosing to not trust God. We have to remind ourselves that there's two sins involved. And to remind ourselves that in order for me not to trust God, it means I'm putting my trust somewhere else. So I've omitted trust here, but I've committed misdirected trust here. And so now we've got two sins going on. The first part of verse 13 says this: here's why the heavens are supposed to be having this astonished, alarming response. For my people have committed two evils. It's not just one that's going on. There's two evils going on. They have, number one, forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. And ultimately what is being said here is, here's the two sins that are being involved. Number one, God says, "O heavens, be astonished, be horribly afraid, be desolate, turn the brightness into gray, because my people have committed two sins here. Number one, they have forsaken me. Number two, ultimately, well, we'll get to the specifics here in a moment, but ultimately, they're going after their own solutions instead. And every time I go after my own solution, every time that I lean on my own understanding, I'm multiplying the problem in my own life, multiplying the problem in my own heart. For my people have committed two evils. Forsaken me. They've tried their own solutions. And again, I know we are to be problem solvers. I think that our God intends on us to be problem solvers. I think the writings of Solomon remind us that although much of life is vanity, and just like chasing the wind, that God has created us with a mind to think things through, to respond and use His Word and make an application to our daily life. He gave us a cognitive ability to figure things out in accordance with His Word. But at the same point, we are not to be using that mental cognitive ability to be able to come up with our own solutions that in turn leave Him out of the solution. And that problem begins to get multiplied. We live in a very throwaway society, unfortunately, today. And there's a lot of times that in our minds with things, it doesn't work, throw it out. My grandpa, and I think everybody in that generation, never threw anything out. It can be bent, it can be broken, it can be in 7 pieces, and it's not supposed to even be in 2. And we're not going to throw it out because we can fix that. And my grandpa many times did. My dad's dad. And there were things that he did and tools that he used that I thought to myself, if you just went to the hardware store and spent $30 and got yourself like a new tool, you could do whatever it is that you're doing so much faster. But this is the one that was passed down from his father. This is the one that he's had in his toolbox for however long, and it's been repaired and fixed and redone multiple times, and he has the means, the ability to do that. And he definitely was a product of, you don't just throw things away. Now, pretty much the things that they make today, brand new, have the intention of they're going to get thrown away anyway. And if you ever bought a printer for your computer, it was one of the things that they're only designed to maybe work 2 years. You throw it away, you get another one. And ridiculous, on a side note, ridiculous that the printer, the brand new printer with the ink already included, many times is cheaper than to get the ink for your old one. That's how that usually works out. But we live in a throwaway society, and in that mentality, in that process that becomes the norm of today, I think a lot of times we begin to have this idea that this didn't work, let's try this. This didn't work, let's try that. I'm taking this to the fullness of it, and that's not working, so we're going to try this other thing. And so not only do we have the two sins of forsaking our God and trying our solution, but when our own solution doesn't work, unfortunately many times we multiply it again and try something else instead of going back to our God and recalling who He is, what He has for us. We have, in the Word of God, we have everything that we need for our life and our godliness. But I can attest to the fact that sometimes when we face life, we don't always go to what has the answers for every aspect of our life and our godliness. And so the multiplication begins from the inside. Reminded of the pastor that I had when I was the assistant pastor, the youth pastor. And he had, I know I've mentioned his son before. He had, how many kids did they have? 4 kids? 4 kids? And was it number 2 or 3? It was Matthew. Was he 1? Was he the oldest? Yeah, it may have been his oldest. He was definitely the biggest, but he was a Down syndrome. So he was a very large boy. Very large boy. In fact, I think he was. So yeah, I think he was the second one, wasn't he? So he was the second, but I think he was the biggest. He was definitely far taller and wider than his older brother. And I don't remember if this happened before us, after us, while we were there. I just remember the story that he and his dad had gone to visit somebody, and pastor left son in the van. He went and was visiting with somebody in the yard, and son put the van in gear, and the van started to roll. Well, it's one of those moments when dad and visitor to the church are standing in the yard watching all of a sudden the van begin to just idle speed. He didn't know how to drive. He didn't know how to step on the accelerator. He just somehow managed, and I think there was something where it's an older van, so he didn't have to now you put the brake on, and he was able just to get it right into to gear, and the van just started to roll. And it was I think it was like an Astro type size van, so it was a bigger size van, and it starts rolling down the driveway. This is in the country, and it rolled through the yard and smacked into their barn in the backyard. And I remember hearing the story from the pastor anyway, so it may have happened before or while we were there. Just saying that there was nothing more hopeless than standing there watching your own son drive your own vehicle into the very barn of the person you were visiting to share the gospel with. And then it's like, there goes your van. And just the very reality, again, from the view from the outside, but how from the inside, things only go from bad to worse. And usually, unfortunately, many times on that course, we continue on to that course until something stops us, until we come to an abrupt halt. But notice, continue on to verse 13. We have a view from the outside, we have multiplication from the inside, we have complete devastation from all around. Not only are we having the 2 specific sins of forsaking God, number 1, finding their own solutions, number 2, but look at how their own solutions are described. In fact, look at how God is described. My people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me. And here's the description of God from God. The fountain of living water. Psalms 36:9 says, "For with thee is the fountain of life." It has this idea of this ever-flowing source of water. There's never a need to store up, for there's a constant, it's just continually flowing. And so, I know perhaps we haven't done this, although I guess we have. Washington, D.C. was pretty close. When it's just so hot and miserable that you're not going to go anywhere without knowing that you have enough water. In fact, I remember as we were hiking, to go back just a couple weeks ago, as we were hiking, and there had what do you call that, a little shop, a gift shop, kind of halfway between the Arlington Cemetery and the Lincoln Memorial. There was a gift shop right there on the corner, and they were selling water. And I said, hey, should we run over and get some more water? And I think my wife responded and said, we have like 15 bottles of water still. And I remember saying, I don't think that's enough.
But for the record, we still had.
And we did. We had plenty. It was probably not enough to get back if we were going to walk, but we certainly had plenty left. But I remember in my mind thinking, I don't want to keep walking farther away from my source of water in this heat when I know that I am literally dripping, and every 7 steps I'm drinking another bottle. And I remember, I think my whole family was laughing at me. I think we should probably go over there and buy some more water. And there's 3 of them with backpacks still full of water and Gatorade. Dad, I think we've got enough. You gotta be sure.
Every time you finished, AJ or Kate had the next one out, so you were never without.
Exactly. I always had a bottle of water in my, and I'm not a water drinker. But it literally was. I would, they'd hand it to me, and I'd drink a good half of it, and I'd drink the whole thing if I knew I wouldn't, that I didn't want it to be gone. So we continued walking, and before long, the next one's gone, and then usually with AJ, because I was walking up with AJ, he'd slide his backpack off. I'll take that. He puts it in his backpack, pulls up the next one, and we keep walking. So now you're understanding. When I see a gift shop that's selling cold water, I'm saying in my mind, I've already had like 8 bottles of water, which has already exceeded my entire year's allowance to this point. And I don't want to walk 7 steps away from that building until I know I have enough water to continue this journey, because I am really thirsty and it is really hot and I am really sweating. Well, here's the thing that God is describing himself as. Wherever you are, there is always a flowing source of water. And it's not just in the realm of the physical realm of necessity of drinking, but literally it's the water of life. I am always there, flowing constantly, a steady flow of water. And you've rejected that. You've turned your back on that, and notice what it says. And your solution was this. You hewed out cisterns. You made your own jugs to haul water. But let's take another step. Let's describe the jugs you made. They don't hold water. You're forsaking me, who is the fountain of life, an ever-flowing, never-ending source of hope and life. And instead, your own solution is this. You've decided instead to make your own jug to fill up with that water so that you can take a step, as if we can step away from our God, away from that ever-flowing source of water. But you created a jug to collect the water, and you assume that your solution is a good one. And when it's coming to an idea of water, I can guarantee you, if that, regardless of how much water was in the backpacks of them, if there would have been a sign out there that said, a 67-ounce thing of water for 50 cents, you can guarantee I would have bought 2. 1 for each hand. Because there are times in our life that we think to be able to take what I know that I need and take it with me is a great idea and a necessity. We begin to create our own jugs, our own cisterns, our own jugs to carry that which God has determined and promised us. There's never a need for you to have to carry this. I am ever present, and as such, I am ever a flowing, non-ending, non-stopping source of life for you. Why are you trying your own efforts in something that doesn't even hold water? Cisterns, broken cisterns, they cannot hold water. And the sad reality is you fill up the jug and then it just begins to leak. It sounds like a great team game. And I know that probably camps have played games like that. The jugs that they poke holes in it, you got to fill them up and pass them over your head, and it's leaking on you the whole time. And you got to fill up the bucket at the back of the line, and so fill it up, hold it over your head, and you're getting drenched. The next person grabs it, getting drenched, you're getting drenched, and by the time it gets to the end, the 5 gallons is now like 7 drops. Do it again, and everybody's getting wet. But the effectiveness of the solution is not working. It's leaking. And sadly, in the realm of the children of Israel, they literally had forsaken their God and literally with their own hands had created graven images as if to replace God. But how about in our own lives that while we think that this is just my decision and nobody's ever going to know, the heavens themselves are observing and crying out, "No, what are you doing?" The multiplication on the inside is not only as I choose to trust something else, am I then by omission choosing to not trust my God, but the problem of the broken cistern means I've got to come up with another way to keep that leak from leaking. And it just creates one problem after another, and it becomes like a 1999 Express van. Where you fix one thing and then you realize you fix that hole and then it begins leaking on this side. You fix that hole and it leaks over here. And we're doing our best in our own solutions, but it's not working. And our God is saying, but I am the spring of living water that never stops. Why are you trying your own sources? Why are you trying your own solutions? So again, I don't believe that our God intends on us to not use our brains, to use our minds, to be able to take the Word of God and make the application of our lives and think things through and prayerfully consider and to mull and meditate and chew on the very treasures of the Word of God. I think He intends on us to use the minds that He gave us, but He doesn't intend on us to use the minds He gave us so that we might, with our own hands and minds, create cisterns that will do nothing but leak the very thing that we need the most. And what a challenge from just 2 verses in Jeremiah chapter 2. When we consider the very reality of how often our solution, my solution, what I think is going to work best is I lean on my own understanding, how it is, unfortunately, many times no different than that. My God says, I've given you my answers. I've given you hope. I've given you life. I've given you all that you need. Why are you trying this on your own? Why are you doing this your way? Why are you trying to accomplish this in your own mind? And as the heavens are observing us, they see us with our big grins like we've accomplished something, holding our cisterns while the water flows out. And what a sad reality. Complete devastation. Complete soakiness. Oh, right, that's the right word, soakiness. Yeah, complete soakiness surrounds us because we've chosen to walk away from the living water, the source that never stops, so that I might come up with my own solution. Any thoughts, questions, comments? Now we are 7 minutes early. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you again for who you are, and thank you for your word. I pray that you be with us as we consider our own life, our own solutions, that we many times put in the place that while we may not intentionally make a decision to not trust you, but by the very placement of importance in our solution and our own understanding and the way that seems best to us, by default then we have neglected you, neglected truly trusting who you are. And certainly we have all done that, but I pray that we would be able to realize and recognize and even if even possible, to hear the proverbial heavens crying out, no, as we pursue that which will never be an answer, while that which is the answer is right beside us. And I just pray that you constantly remind us of that and challenge us in that regard as we live for you, as we strive to follow after you, as we strive to live out all that we do have, that is certainly all that we need for our life and our godliness today. I pray you give us the means, the mind, the determination, the endurance to live it out, to live for you. We thank you for that opportunity in Jesus' name. Amen. Thursday night picnic in the park, National Night Out, 5 to somewhere maybe 8. Fireworks about an hour later. Saturday, handing out bags for the parade. Is that right? And then spaghetti. So spaghetti on Sunday. So whatever the sides will be for that. Wonderful. You are dismissed.